All right, plan. I got a quick 45-minute flight leaving LaGuardia at 7 a.m. Now, let me see what Waze thinks I should do to leave to the airport. What? Leave last Tuesday? Uh-oh.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. So excited to have you here today. I'm feeling really pumped for another great show today. If you're not getting our weekly newsletter, I don't know what to tell you anymore. Wait, I do. Text the word hotel to 66866 and join the 34,000 people that are getting our Sunday night newsletter each and every week. Why do you need to see that? Because not only do we have an understanding of what's going on, we are at the No Vacancy podcast, but all our other shows too, such as the one I've partnered with Hotel Impossible's Anthony Melchiorian, and it's called Hotel Impossible. Plus, we got the great Hotel Design podcast, the Hotel Tech podcast, and more coming soon. So you're going to want to catch everything on the No Vacancy News Network. Also find us at novacancynews.com. And of course, this show is brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy technology platform thousands of hotels are using to make more money. Go check them out at getrevenueresults.com. That's getrevenueresults.com. You're absolutely going to be delighted because you're going to watch this video on how hotel management teams can collaborate and make more money, and you'll understand that when you have a revenue optimization strategy in place, you are going to be able to be more profitable, engage your staff, and everything will be happier and better for the well-being. Also, thanks to Red Roof for being a big sponsor here at the show. But I know what you guys are tuning in for. It's not to hear me. No, it's here to hear my guest, the one and only Mr. Bruce Ford of Lodging Econometrics, who's fresh off of vacation, but also fresh off the lodging conference from last week. Bruce Ford, how are you, sir?
Glenn, I'm better than average today. How about yourself?
Well, I hope you're better than average today. I mean, you had a great time at the lodging conference, and you stole away for a few days at the Walt Disney World Resort. Now you're back in the action. You're in your office, and gosh, man, I can't believe of all things, I missed the lodging conference this year. And for everyone out there, it's an event that I rarely miss. It's one of my favorite events on the annual conference calendar. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I had a little bit of a conflict in my dates. I had a speaking engagement that I had to attend to. I was hosting an event for a hotel management company, which I had a great time. Oh, and if you want to hire me to speak at your event, drop me a line, Glenn@rouse.media. You like how I got in that little shameless plug there, Bruce?
Well, you'll move heaven and earth for, a few shillings, Glenn. So,
Hey, look, it's not that I'm out to to create a media empire as much as it is I'm so scared because my twin boys that are in 9th grade are going to be starting college before I know it, and I don't have any money saved. So, check out my patreon.com, patreon.com/novacancy. Help me pay for my kids' college. All right, so sorry, that's it for the shameless plugs. I promise.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Anyway,
yeah.
The lodging conference in Phoenix, Glenn, it was the 24th this year, the 22nd year at the Arizona Biltmore. And what a wonderful resort that place is. I've enjoyed going there. My dad, Pat Ford, received a Lifetime Achievement Award this year for 60 years in the hospitality industry, Glenn, and there was one very interesting fact.
Wait. The award wasn't for dealing with you for 45 plus years? I'm confused.
No, that's
now.
only. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm a handful, but for sure, the interesting thing that came out of the speech, which I didn't know, is that my dad never received a paycheck for anything other than working in the hotel business. Would you believe that?
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. So for those of you folks who don't know Pat Ford, your dad was so awesome back in the early days of my career when you and I kind of see Bruce Ford and I being of the same, normally say graduating class, but kind of the same starting class. We came into the business and around the same time, so we became fast friends. But Bruce, I got to tell you, your dad was always so welcoming. He could have looked at me like a little kid, but he decided to treat me like a professional, and that's something that I always appreciated going way back to the 90s.
And it was really a wonderful experience to be able to have our really whole family there, for them to experience the resort, experience the experience of the lodging conference, and then to have the outpouring of support and congratulations from the industry was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it must have been. I'm so sad that I missed that. Of all the years for me to miss an event, I can't believe it was this one.
Well, and the second part of it is, Glenn, the Arizona Biltmore hosted the lodging conference for the last time this year.
Yes, it sure
did. At least
did.
for the foreseeable future.
I know. Next year they're moving to the JW Marriott Desert Ridge, and I got to tell you, it is the end of an era. I have an incredible love-hate relationship with the Biltmore. Great hotel, but the event was just outgrowing it, and it made it very difficult to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish with everybody squeezing in there.
So this year, they had more attendees than ever. They let 1,900 guests into the property, and it was just very crowded at the peak times. And, of course, not the whole conference time from really what would be Sunday evening to Thursday morning was peak. But the times that it was peak, it was just very crowded, and but still the glamour of the Biltmore. And for those listening, if you've never had an opportunity to stay there, I will tell you that in Scottsdale, you will not get a finer experience. It is a true four-diamond resort. The food, the drink, the pools, the accommodations, the staff, the location, it is four-diamond all the way, and really quite a lovely place to go and enjoy a weekend, a vacation with the family. It is all of that in a bag of chips, as I like to say.
Bruce, I think you're confused about what a shameless plug is supposed to be. It's supposed to be about yourself, not somebody else out there, Bruce. Not a hotel.
I never have a bad word to say about the Biltmore. For a hotel that is, going on 80 years old, it's still I'm not even correct about that. I've said that wrong.
Right.
Going on more than 105 years old, it still delivers every time. So just a wonderful place, and it'll be a shame to go somewhere next year. But I think that a lot of people wanted to come for that celebration. A lot of people wanted to come to celebrate my dad. A lot of people wanted to come to hear what the heck is going to happen next in the hotel industry, because if for nothing, there was a significant amount of discourse, and I never like to use the word disagreement. I think a difference of opinion, maybe.
Well, that's interesting. I'm curious as to what the difference of opinion is. Speaking of, it's why I love the events such as the lodging conference. And for those of you that may be at a property level that don't understand what this event is, it's one of the major financial conference tentpoles that we have every year in the industry. And all of the major executives from the hotel brands, from the management companies, from the ownership groups, and the suppliers to the business all kind of get together to network, to make deals, to interact, and to swap their opinions on what's happening in the state of the business. So, Bruce Ford, according to what you heard, what are these mixed feelings going on right now about the hotel industry?
Well, as you know, we've had a pretty unprecedented run of operating performance improvement, okay? And many people believe that has to come to an end sooner rather than later, okay? And that perception on its own is really one piece of probably a 10-piece economic picture that you got to put together on the hotel business today. And it is not a record for the three statistics of occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR to be growth month over month. It is not quite a record yet. It is a very long time, okay, but it's not quite a record. So the position that we're in today, which has been driving that, is what is a record is the demand growth.
Right.
We continue to see well over 3% national average demand for room nights continue to grow at a rate that no one has ever seen before. And that's what's really driving the industry. Okay, more people are showing up to rent guest rooms every night than ever before, and that's probably due to just a real push in leisure travel over the past several years.
Right.
I think a real push in hotels being available along highways and byways and being a little bit more accessible. You know, my dad mentioned in his speech how, you know, in the 60s, they had economy and luxury,
Right.
but really all within the same building. And that hotels he used to run would have, you know, guest rooms with no bathrooms. It's like almost like a dormitory style with a shared bathroom, all the way up to having the presidential suite, which would be the finest luxury available in town.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be within the same building.
Funny, when I was in Israel last summer at a couple of the kibbutz resorts that I was at, it was exactly the same thing. You could kind of get a no fuss kind of a room, or you could go all the way up to luxury.
Yeah, and he said that the evolution of the industry has truly changed in that, you know, you used to have 5 different modes of
Right.
Offerings within a hotel, and now you have 5 different brands. And so the way that that's presented to the traveler has obviously got something to do with pure room night demand, but also it's got to do with the expansion of the hotel business through these big major franchise companies collecting so many of these brands. And the fact that you have Marriott with over 30 brands now, and Hilton continuing to build their stable of brands, and Accor continuing to build their stable of brands, the numbers are dramatic, and it's really about capturing the guest and their preferences and their frequent travel habits and wooing them into
Right.
staying at more of their hotel brands up and down the chain scale based upon today's travel need and next week's travel need and next year's travel need. So it is, you know, a different animal for certain, but demand is really what's driving it. So from there, if you take that as the everybody agrees on that, what they disagree on is, have we had a downturn already? Okay, and you can kind of look at a softening of the statistics about 14 to 16 months ago, where it was soft for a period of time,
Right.
really kind of post-election, if you will, where there was a little bit of uncertainty. There was some softness there, which wasn't aggressive growth, or it wasn't 3 or 4 or 5% growth. It was really kind of 0.1, 0.3, and some people thought that would begin the downturn, but that hasn't been the case.
Mm-hmm.
So some people think we've already had the downturn, and now we're in a new baseball game,
Really?
a doubleheader, if you will, Glenn.
Some people feel that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
All right.
So again, I'm just presenting the opinions, okay? So that was
No,
number
I know
one.
that.
Number 2,
I'm stuck on that for a moment because I think it's a fascinating point of view, saying that we've already hit the reset mark. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I do understand that this has been at this point the most prolonged period of growth within the hospitality industry, and I've said
again, it's not a record yet, Glenn.
no.
It's getting there. It's not a record yet.
I'm not. I'm not all caught up with breaking records as much as I am about adding growth constantly going on and on and on. Even if it's a little bit of growth, I think that's a smart way to look at it. But anything I think I say is smart. So what are you going to do?
All right, so that's kind of number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Number 2, all right, is people's opinion that we're just waiting for the next shoe to drop. The midterm elections are coming. We've had 3 interest rate hikes this year from the Fed.
Yep.
The stock market is in nosebleed territory. When that starts to come down, people will get scared. ...
All right. Yeah. All of this stuff, this makes sense. But the one thing that I just don't get is, why is everybody always worried about what's going to happen in the next election? Because I feel like a lot of times they hold off on making decisions until that next election takes place. Then the new administration comes in, blah, blah, blah. But then things don't really fundamentally change in the terms of getting business done. You still have to grow your business. You still have to find new customers for your business. You still have to make deals. So I don't understand why people get this psychological hold up time and time again.
Well, the explanation for that is very simple, Glenn. We don't run the entire economy. We are a corner of the economy. And travel is affected by the sentiments of every CEO of every one of the biggest companies across the world, because those CEOs determine who gets paid what, who travels when. Is business travel important? Are we going to have our own conferences? Are we going to send people to conferences? Do my employees feel safe in their job? Am I laying people off?
Right.
All of those factors, okay, affect travel, okay? You can have all the leisure trips you want to take, Glenn, but if business travel is not firmly in place in the demand scheme, then the industry goes backwards.
Right. And everybody loves those. The corporate people are typically willing to pay a little bit more than the leisure traveler for a night stay. Because, fundamentally, it's not your money, so you're going to be a little bit, easier with it, I would say, in terms of spending for when it comes to hotel rates.
Well, the corporate traveler, there's been changes to how they've reacted, okay? Guys who may have stayed in luxury and upper upscale hotels might have chosen to trade down to upscale or upper mid-scale hotels to save a few dollars, okay? They may have traded down from, first-class travel to, economy comfort travel, if you will. They may have traded down in other places, okay? But the fact is that business travel, although it doesn't, quote, drive the industry, it is a key cornerstone to the industry's success. And when I say travel, it's not just hotels, it's airlines, it's hotels, it's car rentals, it's entertainment, it's restaurants, it's all those types of things. And the summer, I think we'll hear very soon, was really quite good. Gas is still under $3 a gallon. That's obviously a driver of whether you're going to get in your car to go on vacation, or and how far you will go. Okay, so all of those things play a factor and play a role, but also, the awareness of the next generation, and they're akin to experiences. Right. Okay, and I don't need stuff.
No,
I need
right.
Experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have my stuff. I have an iPad that's the size of my chest. I have a phone that's as big as my head. And I just want to put all that stuff I got on there on an enormous TV, and I want to go places.
Right. All right. Well, I do definitely think that the United States in particular has shifted from what I would say is a materialistic economy to an experiential economy. We've talked about that before. But when you think about the economic significance of the meetings business to the U.S. economy, as put forth by the Events Industry Council in a report that they put out in February 2018, there were 1.9 million meetings that happened in 2016, with 251 million meeting participants, generating $325 billion of direct spending, including 167 to plan and produce meetings, 120 billion for meetings travel, and 38 billion for spending for things such as by exhibitors. Now, this is the 2016 numbers, the most recent numbers that are available. And it's interesting because the economic impact of that is 5.9 million jobs, with 249 billion of labor income, representing 446 billion of our GDP, and generating 104 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. So massive. And if that sort of industry starts to change, yes, it can have deleterious effects that are felt in all corners of the hotel business.
So that all sounds wonderful. That's obviously up,
yes.
Okay? And there was some discussion about the meetings business and kind of how that has evolved. So I'd present this to you, Glenn.
Yes, present away.
Extended stay hotels with meeting space.
Okay.
Never would have happened 10 years ago. It's happening now.
All right, this is brand new to me. I've not heard of this. And you're talking about properties that are built specifically for extended stay, or are you talking about dual and triple branded hotel?
Extended stay hotels having meeting rooms.
Who were they selling that space to?
So you and I are regional salespeople for a company, and we have to go to headquarters every now and then, okay? And or we have to meet up with our other salespeople across the country, and we're all going to fly to Atlanta, and we're going to stay in a hotel for a couple of days, okay? And we're going to have some meetings, and our headquarters is not in Atlanta, but it's convenient for everybody.
Right.
We might choose to do that in an extended stay hotel.
Interesting.
Okay. We might choose to do that at a select service hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You and I have both seen Courtyards and Hilton Garden Inns and those types of hotels offering, meeting space that can accommodate up to 50, 60 people in 3 separated spaces. Okay. Those are very popular these days because if you bring 6 or 7 rooms of a block, you don't have to pay for the meeting space. So it's a convenience that's being offered, okay, to sell a block of rooms. And I've been to more meetings at upscale hotels than I can remember ever. And that's a change, okay? And in the going forward motion, okay, think about this. Those upscale hotels are also positioning for soccer tournaments, for weekend leisure away, for the family, for birthday parties, all those types of things whereby you're not looking, you just need a larger space. You don't need a lot of frills. You just need a larger space.
Right.
And so that's serving kind of a need, if you will, okay? And so we're seeing that. And I think the meetings business in the hotel industry, as much as I'm not sure all the listeners get this, but we in the hotel business don't do hotel conferences and convention centers. Okay, we could,
right.
but we don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's because in the hotel business, we enjoy being in hotels, and when we get to the size of these conferences, like the lodging conference with 1,900 people and 45 exhibits, there aren't a lot of hotels you can put that in.
Yeah, it's very true. That's a problem we have with the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference here every single year in New York City in June. Realistically, the only hotel in the entire city that can handle them is the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, where it's currently held.
And contemplate this, Glenn, when the lodging conference moves next year, all 4 of the major hotel conferences will be in Marriott's.
Wow. Now I'm just contemplating that now. Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said I had a few curveballs for you, Glenn. How do you like my pitch?
I'm loving
it,
dude. I'm freaking loving it because I like to be put on edge. I don't like that feeling of always being confident in what's going to come next in a conversation. Because to me, that's really what creates the fun part of this conversation is never knowing what someone's going to say, especially like you. But Bruce, I'm curious as to what the word on the street was with some of the new hotel brands that were being introduced during the event. Best Western Hotels and Resorts, for example, introduced a pair of boutique brands, Sadie Hotel and Aiden Hotel. And Sadie is going to complete in the upscale segment, while the Aiden Hotel is meant to is meant to be within the upper mid-scale segment. They're both conversion brands, and I think that's interesting. Best Western continues to build out its portfolio of brands internally as opposed to through acquisitions. How are people seeing the expansion of more brands?
Again, very difference of opinion here, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
The statistic I presented at the lodging conference about hotel brands is that we have had 77 new ones since 2014.
Oh, wow. Do you have any idea of how many of them went away since 2014?
Yeah, there's been a few that have gone away or that failed to launch, if you will.
And what do we classify as a hotel brand these days? Because you could look at a single property and say that's a brand. Does it need to have X amount for you as Lodging Econometrics to consider it a brand, or you personally as Bruce Ford to consider it a brand?
No, well, that number of 77 is built around they had an event, they launched a brand, they said we're going to do this, and they go off to try and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It is not about whether they opened a hotel.
Right.
Okay? The statement of what I said there was just simply 77 new brands were announced.
Right.
Okay, we can go back and look more carefully and say how many hotels did they open. But the point is that when you break down the 77, you have to look at what was announced by the big players, what was announced by the middle players, and then what was announced as a company that just started up that said we're going to do some hotels. Okay, and to give you an example, a brand that would have launched that would start building that just says we're going to do some hotels would be things like Nobu Hotels.
Right.
Okay. An example of a middle tier a mid-sized company that would have launched would be something like Red Roof Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Or an example of something like one of the big players announcing hotel brands would be things like Avid or Curio or Autograph.
Right.
Okay. There's a vast difference in resources. There's a vast difference in availability of willing and able franchisees. There's a vast difference when you look at the size of the chain scales they look to enter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Home 2 was announced now 7 years ago, I think. 6 or 7 years ago. Finally really taking off, okay?
Yeah,
as now Home 2 by Hilton has the most projects of any brand in the industry.
Wow. And it's one
Did
of those,
you hear that?
I'm actually a little stymied because that is in itself a pretty fascinating statistic, because I would have guessed it would have been Hilton's True brand because of all of the PR machinations that were behind it over the last couple of years since that one debuted.
No, True is a big player.
Right.
There's no question.
But to hear that, Home 2 has been quietly going about its business and building out this great pipeline of product is fascinating to me.
Yeah. And it's an extended stay brand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it is an example of how extended stay has continued to evolve in the hotel business, because when it first came out, before we were even really in the industry, Glenn.
Right.
In the late 80s when Residence Inn was announced, okay, and Residence Inn started, the goal is that we wanted guests for between 7 to 30 days, okay? Today, you and I can go on to a website, any of the brand websites, any of the franchise company websites, any of the OTAs, and we can rent a room at an extended stay hotel for a night. When they first started, that was never the case, okay? Now, they do offer a different platform of rates, okay, for people who are staying a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you can clearly see that happens more often than not, and it can be temporary housing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be I'm here on location for a month for a job. I come here 2 weeks every other month, okay? The upward mobility of people traveling to go to work is an expanded portion of our industry, okay? People who maybe years ago would have had an apartment in 2 cities today say, no, not going to do that. I'll just stay at the Residence Inn.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's an accurate assessment of what's happening in executive stay. So, Bruce, it's about time that we start to wrap things up. So, any other important observation that we didn't discuss about the lodging conference while you were there?
Well, I only ran into 12 people that were completely upset that you were not there, Glenn.
How many people did you run into that were relieved that I wasn't there? That's the more telling number.
There were a few people that were joyous. I won't mention any names. But the industry as a whole really feels quite healthy right now. We cannot anticipate, nor can we predict external economic events that may happen, okay? But if you read the economic forecast today, they do not all agree, okay, in the general economy as to what may happen. If you read the forecast about the hotel industry, I would say they're more pointing in the same direction, okay? And that is a direct result of demand. Demand is really what is continuing to float the industry, and we still have new brands coming out. Hilton has threatened to announce new brands, hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, two more,
okay,
right?
Hasn't done it yet. You've noticed that has been in play for quite a while. Okay?
Getting close to a year. I thought it was going to be at Alice, and I thought it was going to be at NYU. Then I thought it was going to be sometime over the summer away from the conference fray, but it still hasn't happened. So I'm interested to see what they're going to be announcing when they actually do.
Yeah. And don't anticipate that new brand is going to be further down the chain scale than True. Okay?
No.
And don't anticipate and don't be surprised if it's in fact another extended stay brand.
I would not be surprised. What's your statistics? 24% of all new construction hotels are in the extended stay arena now?
I'm glad you read my stuff, Glenn. I'm pretty impressed.
That's I love your stuff. It's the backbone of what makes me feel like I'm smart.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you're looking for more information on our good stuff, you can visit Lodging Econometrics on LinkedIn. You can go sign up for some newsletters on our website, lodgingeconometrics.com. You can follow Lodging Economet on Twitter. I'm BFINNH on Twitter. And, of course, if you are a fan of Glenn Hausman, I do appear probably once a month, maybe once every other month on Glenn's podcast. I'm sure we'll do some stuff in New York coming up in November. And have a great fourth quarter, everybody. Kick some butt.
Well, you'll be back on the show right there in the fourth quarter, so I can't wait to hear what your perspective is going to be. This show that Bruce is talking about, we're going to be recording during the HX Experience BDNY shows held at Javits. That's the Sunday, the 11th of November, going into the 12th of November. I'm really looking forward to these events. I'm going to be doing a panel for AAHOA over there. And speaking of AAHOA, stick around because after this commercial break, I've got a great conversation with Vinay Patel. He's the Secretary of AAHOA. We're going to be talking a lot about the recent AAHOA events and the AHLA Legislative Action Summit, what tax cuts and the JOB Act and Tax Reform 2.0 that passed the House mean to the hospitality industry, what the economy is all about, JOLT Act, all sorts of great stuff. So, Bruce, before I kick it to the next segment, any final words?
Glenn, have fun at your live podcast in New York.
Yes, and as the day that this podcast comes out, that would have been last night, I hope to be able to have said that it was a terrific success. I can't wait to do that, or I'll just say, hey, yeah, it was awesome. So that was great. So
I remember the first time you ever did one, I was there.
Yes, at the rooftop bar at wasn't it which Dream Hotel? Was it the Dream?
I think it was Midtown.
It was the Dream Midtown Hotel. And by coincidence, we're doing it another Dream Hotel Group property, the Time Hotel. So I'm very excited to be doing that. Of course, as you hear this, folks, it's in the past. That show will be coming out as a Hotel Tech podcast and as a checking in with Anthony and Glenn because we recorded 2 shows during that event. All right, so stick around. Thanks for sharing the Week of Pod Groove with me, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No vacancy. The hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. You know, Red Roof, the folks who created the upscale economy segment, well, they've launched a soft brand that's likely to define that category as well. After comprehensive research into what travelers truly desire, Red Roof has created the Red Collection. That's a new group of upper mid-scale unique hotels that are hyper-local and inspired by each area's vibe and culture, all within proximity to the activities and sites travelers want to visit most. Take the 2 premier properties opening this month, for example. The St. Clair, well, it's in Chicago and located just 1 block from the shops, restaurants, museums, and more, all along that magnificent mile. While in Springfield, Illinois, State House Inn guests can experience all of the local restaurants, stores, and history of the land of Lincoln. Each hotel offers modern, accessible, affordable accommodations, all with the amenities guests ask for in consumer research, including a loyalty program that it just happens to be the richest in class, yet the least expensive for franchisees. Every property in the Red Collection has its own distinctive name, customized property enhancement plan, and brand standards based on consumer wants. rather than arbitrary design mandates. And to top it off, the Red Collection gives franchisees opportunity to affordably invest in a sound brand with a solid track record and, of course, Red Roof's stellar management team. Finally, you'll be working with a company with franchisee satisfaction of 94%. And those franchisees will tell you genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's just how Red Roof operates. Learn more about the Red Collection. Contact Matt Hostetler. He's Red Roof's Senior VP of Development and Franchise. Just email him at mhostetler@redroof.com. That's MHOSTETLER@redroof.com. Or give him a call, 713-576-7426. That's 713-576-7426. And tell them Glenn sent you.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast, and thanks so much for sitting through the commercial break right now. I am so excited because this is the first time I'm going to have a real conversation with Vinay Patel. He's the current Secretary of AAHOA. That means he is a future chairman, so I got to start sucking up now because once he's the chairman, I just want him to even remember my name. Mr. Vinay Patel, how are you, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. You know, Vinay, one of the things that always amazes me, and I'm so impressed with AAHOA, is by how the organization changed from a advocacy group in the hospitality industry to an advocacy group for the entire hospitality industry. And recently, you guys have been partnering up more and more with the American Hotel and Lodging Association. And in mid-September, you went up to Capitol Hill and you participated in the Legislative Action Summit. I can't wait to hear about it. But Vinay, I can't stop talking. So I just wanted to say how much I love that event. And for folks that are unfamiliar with it, it's a chance for folks within the hotel business to go up to Capitol Hill, meet with congressional representatives and their aides to get the hotel industry's platform across in a clear and coherent manner. Did I get that right, Vinay?
Yep, that's exactly right. I had been doing this particular event with the AHLA and then obviously with AAHOA over the last couple of years as well. And just like you say, it's a fun event. It's a great event. And it's a great experience in American law. I mean, American law, how laws are really made. And so for me personally, when I had gone through it originally, you know, when you look back and you watch TV and you watch the news network and say how these rules made or the laws made,
right? And
the fact that you're able to go to your respective congressional person, go to Congress, go on the Capitol Hill there, and have that conversation about a simple thing as a bill that you feel positive or something you want to make a difference in, and you're able to talk to your constituent, not constituent, to your respective congressional person.
Right.
It's just fun. It's just a fun event, and I encourage everybody who has never been to go and continue on going. Who people that have gone out there.
Are you required by law to know the Schoolhouse Rock lyrics for "I'm Just a Bill" in order to go ahead up onto Capitol Hill there?
Now you make.
Sorry,
No, I mean, again, like I said,
yeah.
I think the people. So the thing is that it's amazing how when you talk to a lot of the AAHOA members,
right.
And even when I was with the AHLA, and when you go, people that are the first timers, they all get nervous about going out there. So you're going to talk to your congressional person. How am I going to talk? And once you get there, it really, when you walk over, you're like, man, that's so simple. Just going in there,
right.
Sitting in a room, talking about issues that impact you, and it's just simple. And so you don't need to know any kind of lyrics to any kind of rock song or anything like that. It's as simple as going to know your facts as far as what you want to say to your
all right.
congressional person.
Well, okay. Well, thanks. Now I realize I've wasted all my time memorizing all the lyrics to "I'm Just a Bill," but that's okay. I'm going to get past it. So, Vinay, I'm very curious as to what were the issues that you were speaking to representatives about. What was the position that you were taking, and what was the reception that you were received when you were on Capitol Hill?
And this time around, we did it with the AHLA and AAHOA did it together. And the issues this time, were not as contentious. It seems like some of the senators and the congressional person we met with were all on the same side. One of the issues we talked about was the JOLT Act, encouraging people from the foreign countries to come visit the USA. So it really is a win-win. It's a bipartisan issue. Everybody wants to have people come and travel to the USA and visit our hotels and visit our landmarks here. So the JOLT Act was one of them.
So wait, I'd like to just drill down to each of these issues. The JOLT Act, I think, is so super important because over time, since 9/11 in particular, while the world tourism pie is growing, our share of that has not been keeping up in place. Now, the United States, I think, has done a great job in opening up more offices in order to provide visas to people from countries such as China, for example. But in the last couple of years, it seems that international tourism to the United States is starting to ebb a little bit. There's a lot of reasons for that, not just political factors. I think it's important that listeners understand that. So what are you hoping to see the government actually get behind in order to further boost travel to the United States? Because as we know, foreign visitors stay longer and spend more than folks involved in domestic travel.
Exactly. And again, like I said, I don't want to turn into an immigration issue or anything in any way possible like that at all. But the reality is that it just gives countries or people from countries that are everybody's vetted. It's not a matter of somebody not being vetted. Everybody's vetted to the process of what it's supposed to be. And to us, as me as a hotelier, and I've got hotels right outside of Washington, D.C., right in Northern Virginia, and we see international travelers, and even at my hotels, I mean, not only from the hotel spending perspective, not only the restaurant, but the retail side. They'll go to the mall right down the road from our hotel. I mean, they'll have, when they walk in, they probably have 1 or 2 suitcases. When they leave, they probably have 4 or 5 suitcases. Like, man, what these guys are shopping like crazy.
Yep.
And the reality is that things are so cheap here in the USA. Even when I travel abroad, when I go to Europe or even go somewhere in the Asia Pacific, things are not as cheap as here. So even when I travel with my friends, I go, look, hey, it's cheaper for me to buy a pair of jeans in the USA than to buy them elsewhere. So I think when you look at the international traveler that comes in for us as a hotelier side, they spend more, they tend to stay longer here, they've got a lot more money here. And so at the end of the day, it's a very, very positive impact for us. And from the governmental side, all we're saying is, hey, look, let's continue to push this tourism boom as far as people coming from abroad. And how do you make it somewhat more simpler for them to come into the USA? And this JOLT Act, in essence, it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. Basically, what fees that they're collecting from the visa fees that they're paying to come to the USA, using those funds and making sure that we promote USA as a travel destination and promote USA as a great place to visit out here. So it really is a win-win situation for all parties here.
Yeah, it really is. And what's amazing about the United States is we when we look at Europe, we think of all of these different countries that are there, and they're all so close to each other. The United States is such a massive thing. It's kind of like all of Europe and then some in one. So there's so many great different ways for people to come here and vacation and do business here. And I really love that you guys are trying to help promote business and travel in general to the United States. But I'm curious, the economy has now been rolling. The hotel industry economy has been picking up for well over 100 months straight now. How do you see what Capitol Hill could be doing to further help the hospitality industry? And how are you feeling in terms of confidence about the overall economy and the hotel economy?
As far as the question, as far as what the government can do, I mean, I think, from an AAHOA perspective, you look at a lot of the regulations that have been placed in the past. We feel like the regulations have lessened up over the last couple of years. That has helped us out.
Could you give me an example of a couple of those regulations? Because I'm just a caveman. I don't know. I don't get what some of those are. I always hear, less regulation is good, but I think the listeners would be interested to know specifically what's changed that's helping business.
Right. So I'll give you an example just in the state of Virginia. If you have a certain amount of revenue at your small business, it's not a matter of hospitality business, but if you've got a small restaurant or whatever, if you've got, and I don't have the exact numbers, 100,000, 200,000, but if you have an X amount of revenue, you have to report revenue, but then you have to pay taxes in advance. So it's funny. So, for example, if I have to predict what I have to make in January, if I'm going to make $50,000, so I'm going to make $50,000, I have to submit that $50,000. I'm saying I made $50,000, and then there's a X amount of fees. So 2%, so 50 times 2 is $1,000. So I got to pay that $1,000 before that. So December 31st, you got to pay for January. Right. Now you go back in January and say February. Hey, wait a sec, we made only $49,000. Let's go back and we got to adjust that. And so it just makes it harder. And the reality and the reason that was done on the flip side is that the governments want their money quickly. They want to make sure that they get their money in advance compared to going in afterwards. But the reality is, on the small business owner, do I really have time? Do I have an accounting system or accounting person in-house to do this sort of stuff? A lot of these people are small business owners who kind of pay their own bills, do their own things on their own, and then make it a lot easier. And so so now all of a sudden you have to go back and say, well, we made 52,000. Now we got to pay more, so let's cut a check for more. Now I also got to pay for February too. Or we made 49,000, so we got to cut back. So simple things like that. And again, I think I'm not saying the government doesn't understand, but they don't see the view that a small business owner has. They're looking at it in their view. Hey, look, we want to get our money as quickly as we possibly can, and that way we can satisfy our needs. But then the reality on the other side is makes a big difference on the hotelier side. So simple things like that make it a lot harder. Even on the healthcare, mandate of the healthcare. We all, in our hotels, we already gave healthcare, and it's not as far as issue. I think we all agree that we should all, for an employee perspective, should provide that thing. But some of the hurdles that are caused by the government saying, well, you got to have only 50 people, you got to have this, you got to have that, and then you qualify as a group, and then you can qualify for this particular pricing point. Why not make it simple? If I have 50 employees, if only 10 of my employees want health care and the other 30 or 40 have it through their spouses, or some may not choose to have it, maybe we will have to find some other way to give it to them. But, the requirements say, hey, well, you got to have 50 people or more, but I can't. I'm only at 10, so now all of a sudden I have to go to a different pool. So there's a lot of little things like that make it a lot harder for a small business owner to operate. And if you're a large business owner, you've got thousands of employees, it's great, but you've got the depth of employees in your pool that you've got an accounting person, you've got an HR person, you've got a whole bunch of different people out there. But yet for a small business owner who's a one hotel owner or one restaurant owner or what have you, it's a little different game for them. And so to go through the regulations that people put on them is not as simple as it may seem.
That's fascinating. All right, these are great issues because these are the types of things that I don't think we discuss enough. We tend to, I think, just lump reform into one giant block. And when we hear reform, I think we immediately think about the big reform that happened, which was tax cuts and Jobs Act and tax reform 2.0 that's just recently passed the House. So how are how is the tax cuts and the original tax reform helping small businesses within the hospitality industry? Because I'll tell you from my point of view as a business owner here on Long Island, my taxes are going up. So I'm one of the few people that are not so thrilled about the tax reform issue that went through in that form. Hey, my congressman, if you're listening to me, do something to get my state and local tax deductions reinstated. Okay, guys. All right. Thank you. All right. So, Vinay, what is tax reform doing for you as a business owner, and how is it also helping other folks within the AAHOA community?
I mean, the tax reform this year has positively impacted us as far as, writing off certain expenses that we've incurred as far as FF&E renovations to what have you. A direct, immediate write-off of that has really given us a positive impact on the bottom line. And then that has also given us the ability, and more so importantly, the confidence to go ahead and do more. So all of a sudden, okay, you know that you can do more, you can build more, you can buy more, and it just feels more confident. You feel more confident in terms of buying more things or developing more ideas out there. So the tax reform has been positive at least from my perspective personally, and from the AAHOA membership perspective, from talking to all the different members throughout the country. Everybody has said, hey, look, this has been a very positive boon for us and has been a positive impact for us overall. I mean, again, like I said, from an AAHOA side, we will try to focus on small business. Again, I know people sit there and say, well, this tax cut has impacted all large businesses and impact this. But from a AAHOA perspective, we'll sit there and say, hey, look, how does it impact our membership? Right. Most of our membership is LLCs. So how can we make sure that the tax reform is focused on the LLCs? Or if it's a 1031, because many of our members will buy and sell hotels, and how do you kind of mitigate some of the tax implications there? So we'll make sure that the 1031 stays in that tax reform there. So for us, we've seen a positive impact as far as the tax reform. Well, I'm very happy. We also don't live in New York City. So. Yes, well, yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? We've become the favorite whipping boy of anything. I mean, my personal opinion is we drive a lot of the U.S. economy, but we're not being treated with the respect of the amount of the economy that we drive. But that's just
That's just that's my 2 cents. Feel free to send your hate mail to me at glenn@rouse.media. I'm happy to respond to you. But the fact is, I got to pay for my kids' college. I mentioned that in the earlier segment today, and I'm very concerned about these issues right now. It's interesting when you think about the economy. We all have a tendency to think about how the economy from our own personal lens. So I think that's one of the lessons that I'm learning lately. What do you hope to do with your benefits that you're seeing now with tax cuts and this potential new tax reform? Do you feel that it's going to help you build more hotels, employ more people, generate more tax dollars for the jurisdictions that you're within?
Yeah, like I said, this year we've broken ground on 3 hotels in the Virginia area.
Amazing.
And so 2 of them in Northern Virginia. So, so it has really helped us out because of the fact that, hey, looking ahead, some of the money that we're going to make, I mean, the economy is great, the hotels are doing well, so we know what we're going to predict as far as what we're going to make. And then all of a sudden we've got a 10-15% extra income left over because we didn't pay extra taxes. Now we can deploy that and use that towards future development or other hotels out here. So, but yes, for us, we're looking at, like I said, we're in development and or started construction for hotels in this area here.
So now it's a good thing that you're getting that extra money because I'm seeing a lot of wage pressure right now for owners such as yourself. I'm fortunate enough that I'm invited to do a lot of keynote speaking engagements at management companies and ownership groups. And I talk to a lot of these men and women, and they all tell me about how with the state of unemployment today, which is virtually full employment here in the United States, that it's winding up pushing up labor costs. So how are you adapting to higher labor costs with the understanding that I know that you want to be fair to the people that are working hard to run your businesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, labor. I mean, I think you and I both traveled to so many different conferences around the country, and this year, the common theme at every conference has been labor. Labor costs are higher. The fact that you can't find good quality labor, and if you see what you see at the conferences, and I reflect that back at our own hotel today, I see the same thing. It's just tough to find good quality labor. So raising wages is a given. I think that it's a given. I think that everybody has to do it, and people are already starting to do that, not only because of the tax cuts, so they're making more money. So I think that's a given. You have to do that. But I think one of the other things that's going to force a lot of small business owners is to sit there and say, it's not purely about the wage. And if you look at some of the millennials out there, it's about the culture of your hotel, and how do you manage and motivate these people. So I think money is the motivating factor, yes, but then you also have to start looking at different ways to motivate your employees. So whether how do you employ culture in your hotels or your businesses, how do you treat them, that you cannot treat them like a number. So those are the kind of things I think people are slowly realizing, hey, look, it's not just purely about the rate or the pay scale. You also start looking at different aspects of how to motivate and motivate your employees there. And so I think that's really something that's going to be a positive impact on the long run as far as the employee side there.
I think
that's the cost of the cost.
Totally. I think that's a great point, Vinay, because what we're seeing now is the incredible expansion of the hospitality industry and more people getting involved in the service economy, but not necessarily they're perfectly equipped to be within the service economy, which is making your job harder to find the right people to have that spirit of hospitality and the service excellence within them. So that's going to be, I think, a continued challenge going forward in the future, which is why you probably have to motivate them so much. Yes.
And especially if you look at some of the AAHOA side, right. You look at some of the second generation hoteliers, obviously they grew up here, so they see this here. But then when you start looking at some of the first generation hoteliers, even my own dad, you tell them, hey, look, you're going to pay this, okay, paying them this, but now I got to treat them really well. And I'm not saying they don't want to treat them really well, but it's just more of a culture shift that, hey, look, that's part of the job here. Now, you paying them is not the only thing. You really have to push in the sense of you got to be part of a team culture here. So I think that's a positive thing. Again, like I said, even for some of the first generation hoteliers are learning and seeing, and hey, look, this is how the reality is, and so they're moving in that direction.
That's so true, Vinay. And one of the other things that I see is in order to keep the best employees and motivate them, you also have to kind of start to think about a career path for them, which is one of the benefits when you're expanding your hospitality portfolio. You have the opportunity to promote people to assistant general managers, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and the thing is that obviously this is something that's been out there for a long time. When we go legislative, when we go talk to Congress, say, look, the hospitality industry is not a low-paying job industry. Most of our people will come in either at housekeeping. I've got GMs at my hotels who were at breakfast attendant, moved up to front desk, moved to GM, and so they moved up at different levels, and many people move up there and stuff. So I think it's a great avenue and great opportunity for people to step up. But one of the things that I think we have not done a good job is fostering younger people to get in the industry.
Ooh.
You look at high school, some of the colleges. I mean, even myself, and I've got 2 kids in college right now, and when they were younger, nobody will sit there and say, well, I want to be in the hotel business. I mean, they're all going to say, I'm going to be a doctor or attorney or whatever else is out there. The industries that are engineers and all that stuff, the technical stuff, again, great industries, great prospects there, but nobody would ever sit there and say, hey, look, I want to be a hotelier. And if you look at, a lot of the Asian Americans are all accidental hoteliers. If you look at some of the people at AHLA and some of the guys that I've spoken to at RLH and whoever, they're all accidentally, they were working here and then end up being in the hospitality industry. And so I don't think we do a good job in terms of bringing and fostering more younger people in the industry. I think they're doing a much better job now than they did in the past, but I think that is still a lot of room for improvement.
So what would you suggest, Vinay, in order to, spark the imagination of a future hotelier?
I think mentorship, going out and obviously labor's tough today, so you can't find them in the pool here today. So now all of a sudden, hey, look, let's go look at colleges or let's look at some of the local high schools and say, hey, look, how do you get people to come into the industry and get them started early and say, hey, look, this is a fun industry. It's a good industry to be in. It's not a low-paying job, low-paying industry here. So I think you start off young. And I was at a conference recently where they were even suggesting, hey, look, let's start talking to people in the middle school age, saying, hey, look, this is an industry that you really want to kind of get involved in. Start them off really, really early here. So, but I think it's critical because looking ahead 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you want to make sure that you have enough people that are engaged in this industry here.
And so then, this week, Amazon just said that they were going to be upping their minimum wage for employees to $15 an hour. Do you think that is going to have ripple effects within the hospitality industry? And what does that mean to the hotel industry?
Yeah. Again, we all talk about minimum wage and, I don't think even in our industry, I mean, at least in my own company, I don't even know what minimum wage is today because we always pay what the market is paying, whatever the market is. And that's just the reality of business owners. So, $15 is prevailing wage at Amazon. And if that makes sense for them, and again, it's a decision that they have to make. And again, like I said, on a macro level, I think that obviously it'll have pressure on wages on other industries as well.
Yes.
So, hey, if I'm working at Amazon and if I want to work at the Hampton Inn down the road, if Hampton doesn't pay me the $15, I may have to go to Amazon. And Hampton may have to realize, hey, look, I may have to push that wage up a little bit. Or push on their culture and say, hey, look, I may take a lesser pay at work at the Hampton Inn. It's a fun business compared to working at Amazon and pay $15.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Not that it matters anyway, because in about 20 years, we're all going to be replaced by robots anyway. But, what are you going to do? Okay, so a couple of other issues that I wanted to get your opinions on while I have you here is the National Labor Relations Board is using the rulemaking process to really clarify the joint employer standard. That's an issue that's kind of confusing, I think, to the layman out there. Maybe you could explain what joint employer is to our audience and what's going on at the NLRB.
Well, I may be wrong because all these things change all the time. But my understanding, my understanding of this particular bill or this legislation is that my employee at so if I'm an owner of a Hampton Inn, I've got 25 employees. Hilton is the franchisor at that particular hotel. If this joint employer was adhered to or forced upon, then my employees, in essence, would become Hilton's employees. And so, again, it's kind of, as far as the rulemaking process, it's kind of weird. And it's kind of, the NLRB is making the decisions, the 5-man board that kind of implies this sort of stuff here right now. With Trump in the office, it's kind of not there. Obviously, you don't know who's going to come in the office next year, next 4 years, so that could change. But in essence, overall, it's one of the things where the way I understand is that if my employees at my hotel is the people that I employ, and if this particular thing was there, then in essence, Hilton would be the employer of these employees, and they would think, hey, look, these employees work for Hilton, and all of a sudden it's a larger group. And I'm personally against it because a lot of our hotels are franchise models. So Hilton really has no financial stake in this particular hotel or any of the franchises.
It just doesn't make sense to me from a business perspective because you got these franchising organizations, but they're not the parent company. You, Vinay, have your own business. You just happen to make deals with some of these companies to provide you with a particular set of services. So I don't understand what was going on with the NLRB that would make them equate a small business owner with a much larger, potentially public corporation.
Right. It's an effort to collaborate.
Right.
So many people, obviously you get thousands of people into one pool, and it's a way to kind of galvanize people like that.
Yeah.
But from a small business owner perspective, like I said, this is a franchise business. So this is the real estate. I own that real estate. I own the furniture. I own the building. And the most important thing, and I think people lose fact of this here, is that especially in the hospitality industry or even in the restaurant business today, it's becoming a commodity. So if I stay at my Hampton Inn, it's a nice room. If I go to the Courtyard, it's a nice room. If I go to the Holiday Inn Express, it's a nice room. Hilton Garden, these all hotels, great rooms today, and it's now almost commodity. So at the end of the day, all rooms are good. Now, how do I differentiate my hotel compared to the next hotel down the road? How do I differentiate my Hampton Inn from the Holiday Inn Express down the road? And that's through my people, through my employees that I have. And so when the NLRB says, hey, well, these people are now all of a sudden employees of my franchisor, now you're taking that away from me as well. And so I think that's where the biggest negative impact is, because how I motivate my employees, how they can treat my customers is where I can make a differentiator compared to my competitors. So I think that's what the biggest negative impact on this.
So that's absolutely true, Vinay. And that's one of the things that I say very frequently at cocktail party conversations and when I'm doing in speaking engagement is that the entire hotel industry is amazing, and you all do 98, 99% of things in such a terrific way. But it's those people that you have the experiences with at the property level that make an impact and the emotional connection with the customer on property. Nobody goes home and says, you're not going to believe, I always say, you're not going to believe the incredible lamp I saw in my room, although that lamp might be incredible. You're going to say, look at the people that I interacted with at the property. Look at the experience I had that was driven by the individuals at the property level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So, big issue that I want to kind of wrap up with today is one that we haven't really been talking about much in hotel industry circles, but has been kind of silently there and behind. I think it's breaking through to the front now. The whole potential of tariffs and what it means to the cost of designing, supplying, and resupplying hotels at the property level. We've got a lot of goods that are coming from China right now. There are a lot of American companies that have factories in China sending things over here. It's causing prices to go up. On a No Vacancy podcast, a special edition that I put out just last week, I spoke to the hospitality masterminds community, and we spoke with designers, we spoke with purchasing agents, and they're all putting in contingencies now that may wind up saying, hey, these tariffs may wind up costing you an extra 10 to 50% on certain goods. Be aware of this is coming. How are you seeing tariffs? Are you concerned about it? Is this a real issue, Vinay?
I see this, and it's probably a little, for me personally, probably premature to make a call on it.
Right.
And right prior to this our interview today, and I talked to my contractor, and hey, look, how are the tariffs impacting? You see it on the news saying, hey, look, steel is going up, or this or that is going up, tariffs from China is going up. But, thus far, it's kind of premature. And I know I talked to some of the furniture manufacturers. They're saying, hey, look, you may want to start budgeting in additional costs on some of the stuff here, on this year. But, from a construction perspective, steel, I think a lot of stuff comes from Canada. That's a little different compared to the Chinese tariffs. I know even wood lumber. I read an article recently where lumber is slowly coming down now. I mean, that's
because it's been going up for a while. Because I think there was a whole lot of fires in Canada which started to artificially drive up the pricing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Interesting.
So to answer your question as far as how the tariffs have impacted us, is it a concern? Yes, it's a concern. I mean, you see this all the time, especially with us building 4 hotels. How is that going to impact us on the long term? But from an immediate perspective, contractors are saying pricing is up. No doubt about that. But I think a lot of the pricing is up due to labor. Labor just is not as cheap and not as good as quickly as you want to get it. So I think that's where the pressure is coming on. But I think, just like you say, the case goods, the furniture, and a lot of that stuff that does come in from China will impact some of the pricing on it. But you also have a lot of domestic furniture too. So I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see how the impact will be on the long run. But short term, I have not seen much of it.
Yeah, that's kind of the sense that I'm getting. It's still something that's rolling through the hospitality universe and hasn't made it to the property level necessarily yet. I think we're still at the warning stages with that, which you so clearly pointed out. All right, Vinay, before we wrap up, you're Secretary of AAHOA now. You just joined the board this year when you were elected to it. Why go for a board position, and what do you hope to accomplish during your tenure on the board?
People ask that question to me all the time, and it's a tough thing. I mean, again, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying it's tough, but it's a tough thing.
But dude, you're uprooting your life now for 4+ years, and basically, I see how often you travel. Everyone claims I travel a lot. You guys travel a lot. How do you even run a business? So when you're running on the AAHOA, when you're running around the country, and you're on the AAHOA board. So what's the motivating factor here for you?
Yeah. I think the thing is, it's fun in the sense that to be able to engage with some of the AAHOA members, as unique of a characteristic as the AAHOA membership is, it's a fun business, some fun people to hang out with and talk to. And the other part is that I think a lot of the AAHOA board members that are on the board today, and even the officers, their common core is to help. And how can you make a difference in the industry? And they use this platform as a way to make a difference in the industry. And I think AAHOA overall, over the last 20 years or 30 years, as a matter of fact, have come a long way, and it's changed a lot. And I think it's kind of more conducive for people to get involved and make a difference in the industry here. So I think that's what drives me personally. And for me personally as well, as far as the industry as AAHOA as a whole, it's given me a lot over the years. I took advantage of the conferences. I took advantage of the magazines. I took advantage of the educational platforms they had offered. Hence the reason I am where I'm at, and it's because a lot of the stuff that AAHOA had offered me. And so I think it's a good way for me personally to give back to the association and give back to the membership. And again, the membership itself is a fun membership, and it's an engaging membership. So as you know, when you go to the AAHOA convention, it's a lot different convention compared to some of the other conventions out there. And I think that's what kind of motivates people to be involved, and motivates me personally to give back to the association.
Well, it's definitely one of the most passionate conventions that I go to every single year. You know how much I love going to that annual conference, where I'm fortunate enough to once again in 2019 be the official podcast of AAHOA. Now, if you've liked this conversation that Vinay and I have been having, I'd love for you to come join us at the HX Hotel Experience, which is taking place in New York at the Jacob J. Javits Center on November 11th and 12th, because on Sunday the 11th at 11 a.m., in the HX Marketplace, we're going to be at booth 2500 doing a great panel all focused on HR actionables for retaining top talent in the modern age. We teased you a little bit about that in this conversation, but come participate, ask your questions. I'll be moderating that. Vinay will be participating in it along with some other executives. Vinay, before we wrap up today, this is the opportunity for you to do a good shameless plug, either for yourself, your company, AAHOA, whatever it might be. Go for it.
Well, from the AAHOA perspective, obviously it's a great association. It's come a long way. From the industry perspective, most importantly, it's a fun industry. So I, again, like you had mentioned today earlier in the podcast, want to have a lot of younger people being more involved, a lot of people from the outside being involved in the industry. So I just want to say it's a great industry to be in, fun industry to be in, and I encourage everybody to be engaged on the process there.
Excellent. Well, I love it. And of course, go check out AAHOA.com if you're not fully involved, either as a member, if you're in the Asian American community, or if you're a supplier to the business, get involved now. It's truly an amazing industry, and just watching it continue to grow is fantastic. We've got great leadership there. And I want to thank all of you for listening this week to No Vacancy. I'm so delighted to have you here each and every week. Find me online at Traveling Glenn, wherever, and download our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you find your podcast. And I'll be back next week. That is, unless I decide to form a rock band and go around the country singing songs from Schoolhouse Rock. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.